Alright guys, so I stumbled across this very interesting interview that is gonna ruffle a whole lot of feathers. And the interview is of Mr. Ben Stein, who is a Hollywood actor. He's a lawyer, comedian, and political commentator. He actually wrote speeches for President Nixon and Gerald Ford as well. So, I mean, the guy is just an all-around jack of all trades, to be quite honest with you, when it comes to, politics, law, acting, etc. Okay? And in this interview, which I don't know exactly when it was, I can't find exactly when it took place, but I imagine that it's taken place in the last 2 or 3 years, okay? In which he makes a statement that a lot of people are going to find to be controversial, as California has been a leader in progressive criminal justice reform, which is something that I've called one of the biggest threats to this country, okay? They don't want to lock up criminals anymore because of the alleged injustices that the government has done in locking up criminals, right? Or people that have been deemed as criminals in the past. And Ben Stein, in this interview, says the quiet part out loud that I think a whole lot of people probably do think, which is that the government doesn't want to lock up black people. And that is why places like Beverly Hills has experienced a crime surge, according to Ben Stein. Take a listen.
I am talking to you right now on the 3 days after Christmas in the lobby of the Beverly Hills Hotel, one of the most beautiful hotels in the world as far as I'm aware. And I want to talk about crime. When I moved here in 1976, this was a very safe city, and Beverly Hills was one of the safest places in that city. In fact, I think for a large city, it was probably the safest city in the United States of America. And that's changed dramatically, and here's what's going on. For some reason, which would take a lot of explaining, but it could be explained, the government decides to basically stop punishing black people who commit crimes, and black people can commit crimes and not be prosecuted for it. Yes, they're embarrassed, at least to a small extent, and yes, their parents are mad at them, but they do not get away with anything less than murder. And this is a shocking thing. This is a very bad thing. So we have gone from a city where people are happy, they go around with their doors unlocked, to fear, and we have become a city of fear, and that is an extremely bad place to be.
Yeah, so I'm gonna tell you, this guy has never been shy about making controversial statements like that, okay? As he claimed that President Obama was the most racist president in history, okay? This guy made that claim. Now, here's the thing. What is my opinion on this as a black person, okay? Well, I agree and disagree with Ben Stein. And why I disagree is I want to be careful not to make the statement that, well, the government, particularly some of these progressive cities, they're only not locking up black people, right? Or they're saying, look, we're just not going to lock up black people. That's not what they're saying. Evidenced by the fact that in some of these liberal cities like Portland, Oregon, and Seattle, they're letting mainly white leftists, Antifa, run their cities. And they're mainly composed of criminals, right? They're letting those criminals run their cities, okay? So it's not just black people that they're refusing to lock up. They're just refusing to lock up criminals in general. However, the reason why we have progressive criminal justice reform is because, they literally don't want to lock up black people, and that is what they tell you. That is what they say, because anytime they talk about progressive criminal justice reform and why we need criminal justice reform, what does they say? They say, well, we need progressive criminal justice reform because of the historical injustices that the government has done when it comes to locking up people unjustly, and disproportionately, the people that have been affected have been black people. That is the liberal argument. That is the leftist progressive argument, right? So what he's saying is actually true, right? It is actually true. We have progressive criminal justice reform because they want to right the wrongs of what they say has been historical injustices against black people. Now, here's the thing about that, because I'm not necessarily against criminal justice reform or prison reform or anything like that. I'm for a more conservative version of those things because the libertarian streak in me, right, particularly when it comes to adults, I tell you guys, I'm a libertarian when it comes to adults, conservative when it comes to children. But again, when it comes to adults, something does not sit right with me when you have the government putting people in cages because people are putting substances in their body that the government has arbitrarily deemed as harmful. Okay, I don't really understand how in the world do we live in a society where alcohol is legal and marijuana is not, right? I really don't understand. Okay, because by any objective measure, I would say that alcohol is a lot more dangerous than marijuana. But again, for whatever reason, one is legal and one is not. It's a culture thing, right? That's exactly what it is. It's a culture thing. Okay, it's arbitrary. Okay, so again, locking people up for putting substances in their body that the government deems like arbitrarily to be dangerous, again, it just doesn't sit with me the right way. Okay, and that is something that Joe Biden has been responsible for, right? All the things that the woke revolutionaries complain about in regards to the crack coat disparity, whatever you want to call it, okay? In regards to locking up nonviolent drug defenders, Joe Biden was responsible for that primarily with his drug bill of the 80s, right? Joe Biden was the architect of those things, okay? And it just so happened that in the 90s, Joe Biden was also the architect of the so-called crime bill, which, I mean, hey, I would argue that we need another one of those today, but the people who wanted the crime bill the most were black people. Well, why is that? Because black people were being affected the most by the crime, right? And guess who were committing most of those crimes that were affecting black people? Other black folks, okay? That's why they were begging the Democrats for a crime bill. And the Democrats, of course, said, we have no issues locking up black people. We will definitely do a crime bill, right? That's one of the only times that Democrats will ever lift their finger for black people is when they have an opportunity to lock them up, right? I mean, that's just reality of the situation. But with that being said, that brings me to my point, right? Of how progressive criminal justice reform, even though, again, the purpose is supposed to be to right the wrongs of so-called historical injustices, really what it does is that it puts law-abiding citizens in danger, right? Mainly law-abiding black people, right? Who make up a vast majority of black people. Vast majority of black people are law-abiding citizens that are being negatively infected and impacted by the crime that is going on in these inner liberal cities, and the fact that these progressives, a lot of whom are white liberals, but again, a lot of these cities are also run by black liberals as well too, they don't want to lock these people up. They don't want to lock them up because locking up black people is racist, right? It's wrong, okay? They're trying to right the wrongs of the past, okay? So therefore, again, they have taken locking up people for nonviolent drug offenses, they've taken that and they said, well, the way to fix that is that we're just going to stop locking people up in general, right? We're going to just stop locking people up for crimes like, stealing, robbing, stabbing people, assault. We're just going to stop locking people up in general, right? Or we're just going to be really soft, okay? We're going to have low bail or no bail, okay? We're not really going to prosecute people. We aren't going to charge people. That is what has happened with progressive criminal justice reform because like everything else on the left, they take things to the extreme, okay? To me, it makes sense to say, hey, you know what? Yeah, we should probably stop focusing on putting people in cages for the substance that they put in their bodies and get them help. We should focus on actually helping them get off of those substances, okay? We should focus more on that. But it's one thing to be for that. It's another to be for we just shouldn't lock people up for committing crimes at all, right? Especially crimes that are deemed to be violent, right? Crimes that do have victims, right? And because of progressive criminal justice reform, the people that have suffered the most are black people, okay? That's just what it is. That's just reality. That is the reality of the situation. But see, if you call that out and you say something about it, then you're racist, right? You're racist, even though I'm calling out things that are supposed to be saving black lives, that will save black lives, okay? Locking up these criminals that are terrorizing these black neighborhoods will save black lives, right? It did in the 90s, okay? And it will today. However, progressives have taken the opposite approach, okay? And this is why we have so much violence and destruction going on in these cities because, quite simply, again, they don't want to lock up black people because locking up black people is racist, right? It has historically been racist according to the left, right? So that's why they really don't want to do it. And Ben Stein had the cojones to actually say out loud what a lot of people probably do think about the reason why they're not locking up a lot of these criminals. They simply just don't want to lock up black people. And it's not like he's making that up. That's what they tell you. If you listen to what they say and how they talk about progressive criminal justice reform and why they're doing what they're doing, they tell you it's because of the historical injustices that the government has done against so-called people of color, right? AKA black people. That's actually what they really mean, right? That's what they actually really mean. They tell you to your face, we really don't want to lock up people who are not white, right? That's what they tell you, okay? It just so happens that is emboldened people of all races who happen to be criminals, right? Like Antifa and other types, okay, to commit these types of crimes and not face any punishment for it, okay? It has become a liberal city problem, to be quite honest with you. But again, Ben Stein here, I don't think he's cancelable, right? He's too old to give an F, right? He's too old to give a flying flip about potentially being canceled for saying something that, again, I think a lot of people are thinking, and this is things that the progressives say out loud. They just don't put it as bluntly as that. So let me know what you guys think. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Most importantly, share a Black conservative perspective. Peace.